Hello and welcome to the Beat It with Joe podcast. And today I have got the special pleasure of interviewing Hannah Pearse, who is a South African women's hockey player who's just been selected for the Olympics. Congratulations, Hannah.
Thank you.
So why I have asked Hannah to chat to me today is because I once did an interview with her last year after her operation. But the real reason is I wanted to talk about how perseverance, determination, keeping the dream alive has really worked for Hannah. Because if we had to take your life back to 2022, maybe you can talk about the two disappointments. Number one, when Hannah was in the Olympic squad for the Tokyo Olympics, and then she got the dreaded phone call. Should we talk about that?
Sure. So throw back to 2020, probably 2020 when it all sort of started. We were all training, all in that setup in that squad. I got my first cap in 2019, so it was all quite like a quick turnaround almost. To then that lead up to those Olympics, to the Tokyo.
And you were at university at Harvard at the time.
Yes, so I was studying in America and I was doing the back and forth as much as I could, and then took time off for those, and then also COVID hit at the same time, but took time off before we got that announcement as well, to go full time into the hockey and really give Tokyo a chance and a shot. And I did, and I don't regret any of the decisions that I made. I was in that squad, close to the setup, and then you get the phone call to either say that you're in or out. Mine, unfortunately, was the other way, and I got the you have not been selected. Your heart does break. You've now put in all the time, all the effort. It's a dream that I think almost every sports person has when they're very young or whenever they have their dream. But mine was from a very young age, that is what I wanted to do. And that's something that I always set out to. So getting that call, it does break your heart.
Yeah, and I think there are some people out there at the moment who got that call just recently in this past week. And you can really empathize, right? To find your motivation again, to keep training, to keep your dream alive. How did you keep at it? I mean, I know you said you didn't want to go and practice and you didn't want to go and play club, and there's a healing process, isn't there?
Yes, most definitely. I think for a few weeks afterwards, I didn't want to touch my hockey stick. I was like, we've trained now for a very long time, very hard. Like in a bubble for such a long time, and I didn't want to go back to that anytime soon. But having taken the time off, I had one more season left in America. My senior year, I was the captain of the team, so I thought, you know what, I can't actually quit now. I've now put in 3 years of that, so let me go back. I'll see how I feel. Let me just really take it as this is going to be the fun year. It must just bring joy. That's all it had to bring. And it does. Even after the phone call, it obviously still brought the joy. It was just hard to actually pick up a stick. But I decided, let's go back. This is going to be a really fun year. Lead the team, just have fun, be with my friends, and see how it goes. And it ended up being probably one of my best seasons probably in my career so far.
Okay.
I think now with the knee and stuff, back then it was definitely the best season that I had for Harvard as a hockey team, but then I think also just for me personally. Yeah. So
was it finding your joy again? It was the pressure was off as such. So it was going back to your why. Like, why did I start playing the sport? And I love it, and I love it because I'm good at it and I enjoy the process.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's exactly what it went down to. I went into it. No one really knew that I was thinking I don't actually want to play hockey for quite a while. I sort of kept that to myself to just see how I actually felt. And I was close enough with my coach. We had a good relationship that if that had to be the decision at the end of the day, I could sit down and actually talk to him. Thankfully, it never needed to happen. And that we were just in such a good environment that it was fun from the start. Yeah. Even the double session days, the extra running, all of that stuff, it was fun from the start. And the team was amazing.
And then you ended your Harvard with a huge award. Won't you remind me what that award was?
It was the Radcliffe Prize. It's the Sportswoman of the Year essentially at Harvard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a huge. You just kept it going, and you were rewarded for that. So that was a huge plus. Then you decided to continue your academic studies, but you moved to the UK.
Yes.
And you were at Loughborough. Where were you?
No, University of Birmingham.
University of Birmingham. Yes. And all right, so you started playing hockey there, and maybe share then what happened.
Yeah, so sort of went through one season there, and then we came back and we had a series here back with the SA team. I sort of decided that after the season at Harvard that I actually didn't want to give it up. I still had the dream that I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wanted to play for my country. I wanted to get my 50 caps, my 100 caps, hopefully 100 caps, and etc., etc. And I knew that dream to play for my country was still there. So kept going, kept at it. And then when I went back for the second half of our season, on February 11th, I was running out the back, and as I stepped, I snapped my ACL. Okay. Well, I fell, and I sort of knew when I fell that it was something pretty serious. But it was a very weird experience. It was so much pain when I first fell, and then when the physio came on to actually check, I then had no pain. So I even walked off the field, and I sort of like cheekily grinned at the physio and said, "Well, can I go back on?" And he sort of looked at me and he was like, "Just give it a minute, see how you feel." And then after sort of that minute, I was like, "Actually, I'm done." So there's something's not right.
And then you had to have an op. So you came back to South Africa and you had the op. And I want you to talk about how quickly you improve after an operation like that. And so psychologically you think, okay, this is not too bad. And then it plateaus. Yeah. Can you talk about that and emotionally where you're at? And you had the pressure of the Olympics 2024, 18 months away. Can you talk me through that process?
Yeah, so I had never, fortunately in my career, I'd never been injured before. So I'd never had to deal with the injury rehab, coming back, getting into it, all of that stuff process before. So I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what to expect. I had previous teammates and stuff reached out, and they just said, just be consistent with it, just stay in it, just make sure that you do the rehab properly. If you follow the program, you do what needs to be done, you will come back stronger. Do you know what I mean? Trust that process. So at first I was like, cool, we're all in. I was all in the whole process, but in the beginning I was very it's fine. 9 months is what the doctor recommended. It was they usually say, it's obviously patient dependent or person dependent, but they usually say it's about an average of 9 months. So I was like, cool, that takes me to November or early December. And from then I still have another 6 months until the Olympics, etc. So in my mind, I was fortunate enough that I had the time. So in the beginning, I was very motivated, and the steps that you take in the beginning seem huge because you go from full brace, locking your leg, crutches, to then walking and rocking and balancing and all that type of stuff. So you feel really good, and those progressions sort of happen. Well, for me, they happened quite quickly. Yeah. In terms of 1 week I couldn't, and the next week I could. And I was like, this is cool. This is going to be great. Then were you
journaling through this process?
No, not really. I didn't really, for me, I don't know. Okay. For me, it didn't really work that way, but I just sort of kept track of, just in my mind how that sort of worked. With this type of injury that I had, they almost at certain stages. I think it's months and at certain weeks, depending on where you are in the process. There are tick boxes that you can actually tick off and say, right, by week 4, you should be, by week 12, by. So I sort of had those goals and those check boxes to chase in the beginning. But then when you get to those bigger blocks where you're now starting to develop more of the strength, getting the strength back in your quad and the strength of your hamstring. Because for my op, they stripped some of my hamstring as well as my ITV to then fix and stabilize that ACL. So it was getting the strength back of those muscles surrounding. And obviously that is a slow process. You don't see huge results in 1 week or 2 weeks. So that took quite a long time, and that was hard mentally and emotionally to actually push through that, because you'd go gym session, and you wouldn't see massive results each time.
And I remember you saying the feedback from one of your physios or one of the support team was never positive, which can be quite demotivating if you let it get to you, right?
Yeah. I think it's also it's the nature of being that elite top athlete, you want to see the results after you put the work in.
Yeah.
And I think that's also so hard about it, is you can one week be pushing your leg press and the next week you should be going up, but for some reason you can't.
Okay.
So it always feels like it's a constant like negative, oh, it's not clicking, it's not this, it's not that.
So you're taking steps forward and then back, and it's like, okay.
Yes, and for me it often felt like that.
Okay.
Because again, you can have one thing, also advice that I got, you're going to have your good and your bad days, and you can go through your good for 4 days and have a very bad day, but then you'll jump back to a good.
Okay.
And not being through that process, the bad days can hit you hard, because you know what I mean? Like you expect, like 4 days before you were leg pressing or you were leg extensions or whatever, you were doing really well. And the next day, your knee was just sore. And because it's naturally just what the body did.
Okay, and then your team was playing some international games and traveling, and you weren't. Did you think about that? Was that external pressure for you, or did you just like, okay, that's happening, that's not part of my journey right now? Were you able to detach from that?
Yes.
Okay.
So there was actually at one point, I think it was a week after my operation, or it was very close after the operation. And I couldn't lift my leg behind because of the weakness in my hamstring from the operation. And I was doing one of the exercises to try just get some of that mobility back. And I remember standing there, and I was now struggling to lift my leg behind me. And I knew that the team was getting on the plane, or they were flying to, I think it was Chile or Korea, or I can't remember which one it was, but they were going. And I just remember standing there, and I was just crying. And I said, I should be on a plane. I should be playing hockey, and now I can barely lift my leg off the floor. So I think after that was one of those who like, actually, you have to let that go.
It's accepting that's where you're at, right?
And just saying, I'm on a different journey, different path, but that is still where I want to be. I still want to be on the plane.
Okay.
And that's sort of what motivated me to just keep going, to just keep pushing through, even when things sort of did plateau.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of hard work and a lot of like almost like jump starting an engine.
Yeah.
So after those bad days, you almost had to have like a massive jump start.
And then what I've noticed is once you came back and you were with the squad again, you had to do extra. So you had the practices, and the same, you're still doing it. You got the practices with your team, yet you have to stay after or go to an extra gym session or another assessment. So it's still part of the process.
Yeah.
However, let's talk about. So for the past few months, you've been training in the squad. You were selected for the Olympic squad, and then the inevitable phone call was going to come. Share that.
So we were told that we would obviously get a phone call, sort of the same way that it happened. I think it happens every year. You get told sort of personally before that announcement's actually made. So having had the phone call before, it is a very, very, it's a nerve-wracking process regardless. But then having had that phone call the first time, I knew that side of the coin.
Yeah.
So when the phone rang, your heart, I think I started crying immediately, and your heart sort of just like stops for a minute, and you're like, breathe. You actually have to answer this phone call. You can't just let it ring and let them phone back. Like you need to actually take a breath, and then thankfully this time round it was the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
So also again, it ended in tears, because the minute you hear that, you just like this sense of sort of relief and just like pride.
Yeah.
And you just feel so like, you feel very overwhelmed, very grateful, very happy. And then instantly, once that phone call happened, put it down, and I phoned my family group. And my dad and brother answered. My mom, I found out after the time, she was actually washing one of our dogs. But the boys answered, so I was like, well, I'm really crying. I can't now say, okay, I'll call you back when mom picks up. So I was crying, then told them. They were very happy about it. And then when I went home later that night as well, my dad said, when I just heard you crying, I thought it was the other side of the coin that we dealt with 2 or 4 years ago. So I think it was it's a very emotional experience.
Yeah.
Whether it's the good or the bad, it's a very high intense moment.
Well, I've walked this journey with you, and my joy for you is on another level. I know I've known you for many years, so I know the hard work, the determination, the keep on at it in holidays, in everything. You've persevered, and it's paid off. So I am so grateful to having chat with you, and I wish you all the very best for Paris 2024. and may you enjoy the process and have a fantastic career.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.